Hello everyone, this is Sunny from Bottom Split here with another short hardware review. Well, I guess it's going to be short, short compared to like my SimiCube review, which went like over an hour. I know a lot of people have reviewed this particular product already, and the general consensus is that it's an amazing value, and the best words I've heard to describe it is from Barry Rowland, Sim Racing Garage, who said that it punches above its weight, is what he said, and I agree with that fully. It's this right here, the McLaren GT3 V2 steering wheel by Fanatec. It was released back in December. I've had it on hand for a while. You may have seen it in one of my last reviews where I talked about the SimiCube and whether it's worth upgrading from Fanatec, and I specifically had this steering wheel and some of my comparisons. But yeah, I've had this wheel for a while now. I recently purchased the ClubSport metal adapter in order to use it with the Fanatec Podium or DD1 or DD2 wheelbases and unlock full torque. And so now I'm going to be doing a review about this steering wheel. But where I'm going to be doing things a little bit different is, of course, everybody's really happy that this wheel is back. I'm not going to sit here and say stuff to you that you've already heard. We can all celebrate the return of the king, you know, and we can all enjoy watching all those people who used to resell the old version of this wheel for $400 or $500. They were pricing it up and scalping it on the secondhand market because it was discontinued, and now we can watch those people suffer because now this wheel is mass produced and anybody can buy it on the Fanatec website. You might have to pre-order it. I believe right now it's back ordered all the way back to June. But in general, I've seen that lately, last year was pretty terrible, but lately Fanatec has been pretty good about sending out products according to the pre-order date, and in some cases they come sooner. So yeah, more or less this wheel is widely available. It may have slow manufacturing due to some issues overseas, but for the most part anybody can buy it from the Fanatec website for $199. Now if you wanted to use this with the Podium steering wheel, you would have to buy the $100 ClubSport adapter, but that's another part of the discussion that I'm going to get into. But yeah, sucks to be you guys who resold this wheel for a lot of money. You guys are going to have to find something else to sell for a lot of money, like GPUs or PlayStations. Anyway, yeah, so the purpose of this video is to address whether or not this wheel renders other wheels from Fanatec obsolete. In particular, I'm going to be comparing it to this guy. Now, of course, this is the PlayStation version of the Formula wheel, so it doesn't have Xbox compatibility, but for all intents and purposes, this is a Formula V2. It has so the main reason I'm going to be comparing this, the main theme of this video, is because a lot of people are wondering, since they both have magnetic shifters, they're both open wheel, they both have analog clutches. Now that the McLaren GT3 is back, does it mean that the Formula V2 is obsolete? Now, of course, a lot of you are going to say, of course it doesn't, because the Formula V2 is a much more higher end wheel. But is it really? You know, we're going to get into that, and we're going to discuss it, and we're going to do a little bit of a comparison. Now, as I always promised, I'm going to give you guys my wrap up, my too long didn't watch summary. So versus the ClubSport non-V2 Formula wheels, so not the Formula V2, but for example the Formula Esports, the Formula Carbon, and I think there was an older one called the Formula Black. I believe, in my opinion, this GT3 wheel renders those cheaper, lower cost Formula wheels by Fanatec completely obsolete. There's no reason to buy those steering wheels. I think there's a couple of features that they offer over this wheel, like for example they have RPM lights at the top, and they also have a joystick that you can use to map to the mouse function. But for all other intents and purposes, this is a better wheel, maybe 9 times out of 10. Like, there's very minor cases where this is not a better wheel. It has better shifters. The cheaper Formula wheels, the cheaper Formula ClubSport wheels by Fanatec, you can't upgrade the shifters. You can't attach the advanced paddle module, and you can't attach the ClubSport magnetic shifters to it. So you have to use third-party magnetic shifters, like the ones by Sim Racing machines, or 3D printed magnetic add-ons in order to add some more tactility to them. But this has multi-position switches, it has the analog clutch paddles, it has the toggle switches. It's just a better wheel than those. So that might be why I believe that Fanatec has discontinued the lower cost Formula wheels. If you look at Fanatec's website, you'll notice that the ClubSport Esports wheel and the ClubSport Formula Carbon are missing. They're absent, and this is not just in the US website, but it's also in Europe. And I believe in Japan, it's for about a year now, they've only had the esports wheel available in Japan. So those wheels are gone, and I believe that they're obsolete. So I think that, you know, if you're shopping for those wheels, this is a better wheel than those. Now versus the V2, the Formula V2, now obviously the Formula V2 is more expensive. That part is, it's undeniable. But a lot of people believe that because they both have magnetic shifters, that you could just put them side by side and say, okay, if we compare these two wheels, they both have toggle switches, they both have like multi-position switches, and they both have magnetic shifters, so all of those functions are a watch. Now it's true in the case of the toggle switches and the multi-position switches, they're pretty much identical. I want to say that the multi-position switches feel a little more tactile on the GT3 wheel, but yeah, those functions are pretty much the same. The buttons sound a little bit different, and I have an audio test that I'll show later on in the video. But when it comes to the magnetic shifters, I really don't think that you can compare the Formula V2 when it has the advanced paddle module to the GT3 wheel. You can't simply say that they both have magnetic shifters so they're exactly the same. The sound and the tactility and the feel is completely different. Now me personally, I think I've been spoiled by the advanced paddle module, so it's very difficult for me to sort of like feel good shifting with the McLaren GT3 wheel, but this is considerably more expensive, right? So if you get the Podium Racing Wheel F1, you get this for free, but if you have to buy it separately, then this is pretty expensive. It's almost double the cost, even if you get the ClubSport metal adapter. So that's one thing that's worth considering. I think it's about $210, I believe, $210 of a price difference when you consider the Formula V2 with the advanced paddle module versus the McLaren GT3 with the ClubSport adapter. So, you know, if you're building it up little by little, you could buy this wheel and you could use it in low torque mode on a DD1 and then eventually buy the ClubSport adapter. But if you buy this wheel and you try it out and you feel like the shifters aren't that good, it's true that there's third-party shifters you can attach to it. I don't recommend using those because you are going to have to drill into the shell in order to attach them and install them. So you're pretty much kissing your warranty goodbye. And personally, I feel like having the ability to return it back to stock and just sell it to someone else is a better idea than buying the Sim Racing Machines shifters, because when you do that, you're basically bringing this wheel to, what, about $420 in total price. And at that price, the price difference between that and the Formula V2 with the APM is a much smaller price difference, so I recommend just sell it and then buy this. But if you're okay with the shifters as they are, if you like the rocker arm shifter with the magnetic feedback, it's definitely better than the stock shifters on the Universal Hub or on the ClubSport Esports Formula wheel and the Formula Carbon. This rocker arm shifter, it's better than those. So at least it's not as good as the APM, but it's in second place to that. So that's how I feel about that. Now the last too long didn't watch aspect of it is how they both feel while driving. To be perfectly honest, I feel like I used to think that the Formula was too small. The Formula wheels at Fanatec were too small for GT3. I spent about an hour driving in the Formula V2 on GT3 across 3 different sims, and I noticed that after about an hour I got used to it. And chicanes and Monza and Imola, any of the road courses that have like particularly tight corners, I got pretty used to it and it didn't feel like it was too small. So yeah, that's the too long didn't watch, but let's get into the longer summary of the video, and I'm going to move on point by point. So the first part of the video, let's talk about what's in the box. What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? Brad Pitt, right? From Seven? No? Okay, all right. I'm not as good of an actor as he is. But yeah, what is in the box? Yeah, so, you know, like particularly one of the things is that they call this an unofficial ClubSport wheel. So it is a CSL wheel, but they say that it's an unofficial ClubSport wheel because it punches above its weight, like Barry Rowland said. It has a lot of functions, it has a lot of features. You can upgrade it to full torque. That's something you can't do with the P1 wheel or the WRC wheel. But yeah, let's talk about what's inside the box. So I'm gonna open this up. Now, I've already taken out the wheel, so everything that's inside of here that's of value has already been taken out, but I did leave a lot of the accessories and booklets and stuff like that that's inside of the box as previously. So first, if you've purchased the ClubSport wheel, you'll remember that the ClubSport wheels include a black sort of Fanatec drawstring bag. That's missing here. They don't give you that. You just get a standard plastic wrapper. This is the same thing they give you with the CSL wheelbase or the CSL P1 wheel or any of the CSL products, you don't get the swag bag. But, you know, interesting fact, that actually doesn't come with Podium products either. So that's exclusive to ClubSport products. I previously purchased an advanced paddle module, and it didn't come with a swag bag thing, and my Podium racing wheel didn't come with a swag bag, which is kind of interesting. But I don't think it would actually be useful there, because the drawstring bag, there's no way that it could hold the weight capacity of a 13 kilogram servo motor. But, you know, just, yeah, that bag is exclusive to ClubSport products. So yeah, just throw that out there. The GT3 wheel does come with button caps, so same type of button caps that come with I think the ClubSport Esports wheel, the Formula V2 wheel. So you do get some, like a small amount of functions. They're not colored and they're not like the decal kit, but they are there. You get the styrofoam, of course, and you get like a more modest amount of decals. So like you get the CSL array of Fanatec decals. Like, you really need these. Fanatec seems to have no trouble branding their products with Fanatec everywhere. I'm pretty sure my underwear says Fanatec on it. But in case you run out of places to say and let everyone know what hardware you have, you get some extra stickers here. Now, it does come with a decal kit for functions. So I thought that was interesting, because the Formula Esports and other Formula wheels that I purchased, and I did purchase those brand new before, they didn't come with this. But if you take a look, you get some functions like I think that's left, right, menu, page up, page down, pit, TCS, OK, menu, and it's 2 square boxes. I don't know what that means, but yeah, escape, start, DNS back, OK. Yeah, so it comes with those. Some people use them. I've never really used them. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything that's in the box. Now, everything that gets in it is in there. Now, one thing is that when you first get it, you're going to have this, which is the new redesigned CSL quick release. It's a toolless design. You no longer have to screw like there's like a bolt that you can attach. You no longer have to do that anymore. This one, it pretty much attaches by being tightened. So you pretty much just like when it's loosened, it's all the way this way, but as you tighten it, this white strip is going to vanish. So let me tighten it a little bit so you can see the white strip get hidden, and it's gone. So once it's all the way tightened, you know that the wheel is completely like tightened to the drive shaft. But as I said before, and I'm sure you've seen this on other reviews of it, if you use this adapter as is, you won't be able to unlock the full 20 Newton meters of torque, or 25 Newton meters in the case of the DD2, and that's because of this little small, like it's kind of a button lever. Like when you attach this, it pushes a button that lets the wheel know that you're in low torque mode. You could snap this off. I don't recommend doing that. I do believe that this is strong enough to unlock to be able to use with the DD1. It's very solid. It feels very stiff. But personally, I like the ability to resell the wheel back in OEM condition. And if you were to modify this permanently, you might not be able to sell it on the used market for the same price. You know, people who buy things secondhand, they look for any reason to lowball you. Don't give them more arguments on their side. And personally, if you own a DD1 or a DD2, is $100 really going to break the bank for you? So I recommend just buying the ClubSport adapter. Now, the wheel itself, let's take a look really quick and talk about the physical condition of the wheel. This will be the last section of the wheel before everything else I do, I use shows actual video clips. But the wheel, when you hold it in your hands, you're going to notice that it doesn't feel like a CSL wheel. It feels very rigid, very stiff, and the quality feels very nice. It's very thick. Like the thickness of it is about 2 inches, I believe, about 2.5 inches at the thickest end of it. But it's very sturdy. It uses a injection mold plastic with a carbon fiber style surface to it, but it feels very, very stiff. It uses it's a strong type of rubber. They say that it's the same rubber that's used in the actual McLaren GT3 wheel. But yeah, it has this rubber grip. It's nice to see some steering wheels that don't have the Alcantara, because personally, I get tired of using gloves and needing to use gloves every time I drive. But yeah, these two buttons, they apparently feel the same as the actual buttons on the GT3 wheel, and they have a very heavy feel to them. Let's go ahead and give them a push so you can see. It's very stiff. You have to put a significant amount of pressure on them to get them pushed in. And unlike the other buttons, they don't have removable decals. They actually have N and P engraved into the buttons themselves. So I'm guessing neutral and pit, or neutral and park. I don't know why you'd use park in any actual driving sims, but since it's a good function, it's a good button to map for, I guess, pit limiter. So yeah, it's there. It has two toggle switches at the top, and then two multifunction, multi-position switches, which pretty much you can use as rotary encoders. They feel basically the same as the rotary encoders on the Formula V2. In my opinion, they feel a little more tactile. They feel nicer, in my opinion, than the Formula V2 multi-position encoders. So let's take a look at those. You can hear they have like a more click sound to them. And if you listen to the Formula V2, you're going to notice that they sound a little more subtle. Yeah, so I like the tactility of those. But yeah, like it's got this aluminum anodized rocker arm. So like you can see that you're able to up and down shift with the same paddle. Yeah, so that's what it has. And this is what it looks like with the metal ClubSport adapter attached to it. And yeah, all of the buttons are easily reachable with your thumbs. The main difference between this and a ClubSport wheel, of course, is that it doesn't have the vibration motors inside of it. I've noticed that I do notice those when I'm reaching the traction limit or the grip limit when I'm driving at speed. But it doesn't have the vibration motors, and it also doesn't have the RPM lights. So that's one difference. And of course, the joystick doesn't have that, but it does have the complete funky switch. So the CSL P1 wheel, I noticed that it doesn't have the push function of this funky switch, but this does. So you can actually press it in. So it has up, down, left, right, and the rotary encoder function, and it also has the push button. So that's nice. It's a full 7 function funky switch and not a 6 function funky switch like what's on the CSL P1 wheel. Yeah, it has the analog clutch paddles, which can be used for gas and brake, along with the clutch function. But yeah, it feels really good. It feels really solid in my hands. I like the way it feels. It's a full wheel. It's 30 centimeters across, and yeah, it's very thick and very dense. But yeah, that's everything that comes in the box. Really quickly, I'm going to talk about the ClubSport quick release adapter. So you're going to need this if you want to unlock the full torque. Now, I purchased it around the time that I ordered my Podium Racing Wheel F1 because I knew that I was going to consider using this wheel after I did this comparison, so I thought I would want the full torque. So one thing is that if you buy this ClubSport adapter, you're going to notice that it comes with a set of screws inside the bag. These are the ones that came inside the bag. They're a little bit long, and when you get these out, you're going to notice that they're longer than the ones that are included on the GT3 wheel with the plastic quick release. And I've noticed some people are wondering, should you use these and change the bolts, or should you use the ones that come with the McLaren GT3? I used the ones that came with the McLaren GT3 wheel. They're long enough, they fully reach the threading on the inside of the wheel. I believe that these are included for the CSL P1 wheel or wheels that had the older plastic quick release. I think that those older wheels had maybe a thicker distance between the quick release, or they had thinner, shorter bolts, so they needed these. But I used the bolts that came with the McLaren GT3 wheel. It hasn't given me any problems at all. I don't like the idea of using bolts that are too long because I feel like it's possible that I might stab into the PCB on the inside of the wheel. But yeah, I use these wheels. It also includes the Allen wrench to actually remove the quick release, and it includes the quick release locking bolt that you can use. But yeah, I bought this, and I know some people might be wondering if they should use the quick release that comes with other ClubSport wheels and be able to use that on the McLaren GT3 wheel, and the answer is no, you won't be able to do that because the older quick release, ClubSport quick release, actually is a full circle here, and this newer style ClubSport quick release has a flat edge at the top and the bottom, and that's important because the back of the injection mold plastic on the McLaren GT3 wheel does require that flat surface. So yeah, that's everything in the box and everything in the ClubSport box. So let's get into some driving videos. So I'm not going to go into too much detail when I talk about how it feels while it's driving, but I'm going to say that one of the big reasons people were hoping for the McLaren GT3 to make a comeback is because some people consider the Formula wheels by Fanatec to be too small for GT3 or prototype racing. In order to get a feel for whether this was a real issue or not, I drove for about an hour across multiple sims in their GT3 cars, and that's in both wheels. So that's an hour of Automobilista 2, an hour of Assetto Corsa Competizione, and an hour in iRacing in 488 GT3 with each wheel. So that's 1 hour for each sim for each wheel. So it took a while, but what I found was that initially the Formula V2 did feel a little small for some of the tighter corners and chicanes, especially in iRacing, where you need a little more effort to rotate the 488 GT3 when you're entering corners as you're letting off the brakes. But as I got used to the wheel, I began to notice that I didn't actually mind the smaller size of the Formula V2. I found that after about 30 minutes in Automobilista 2 and Assetto Corsa Competizione, I could more or less drive comfortably in Monza or Imola without any issues with the Formula V2. Now, I thought, based on my previous experience with the ClubSport V2.5, that the Formula wheel was going to be too small, but I don't know if it's the change in position for the shifters or if it's that maybe my driving has changed over the last year, but I noticed that the Formula V2 didn't actually feel too small. So I think if you spend time getting used to the Formula V2, you're not going to notice any issues with the smaller size. Now on the converse side, people will wonder, how does the GT3 wheel feel? Well, the GT3, of course, it felt really great for GT3 cars in any of the 3 sims right out of the pit lanes. There was no adjustment time needed. There wasn't really a time needed that I could get used to driving. I was able to confidently jump into chicanes and tight corners without any sort of issues. As I spent more time with the GT3 wheel, I never found myself feeling like it was too big or too bulky or too large. So on the flip side, even when I used the McLaren GT3 wheel for Formula cars, I didn't feel like it was too big. So I drove in F4 and retro Formula cars in Automobilista 2 and the Formula V12, and the GT3 wheel, it didn't feel too big at all. It felt right at home. I was able to corner with precision and accuracy, and I didn't overcook my tires in any corners. I didn't have any issues losing traction. I was able to catch slides with both wheels, and I could even let the rear go loose a little bit, and the GT3 wheel felt right at home even doing that. So to be perfectly honest, I feel like both wheels are capable of being used across a multitude of vehicles, and I think that both wheels are not able to be used with the cars that either is not able to be used with. So you're not going to be able to do any sort of rallycross or like maybe driving the MX-5 with the H-pattern shifter. You're not going to be able to do that with either of these wheels. So I don't think that either wheel allows you to drive a car that the other wheel does not allow you to do. And I don't think that either wheel could be used with certain styles of cars that the other one can't be used for. But I do think that the Formula V2 compared to the GT3 McLaren steering wheel requires a little more adjustment time when you're driving cars like GT3. Of course, that's with iRacing. With Automobilista 2 and Assetto Corsa Competizione, I felt like it took even less time for the Formula V2 to be comfortable. So that's how they both feel in terms of like what allows you to use different cars or what allows you to use the same cars. To be perfectly honest, I didn't feel like either one felt more premium or less premium in my hands, especially since I race in VR. I don't really actually look at the steering wheel while I'm driving. So that's kind of why the RPM lights and the LED lights is kind of a wash. It's not really an advantage for either one. But I do notice the difference in shifting, and that's what I'm going to get into in the next section of the video. Now, while I had no issues driving with either wheel, there are some shortcomings to the GT3 wheel that I feel need to be discussed. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to throw a disclaimer out there. These shortcomings do not take away from the fact that this McLaren GT3 wheel is an amazing value, and I still think that it's the best wheel that you can get by Fanatec under $400. But they are still shortcomings, and they do exist, and I think that it's important that we don't get caught up in this like the fallacy of thinking that everything is great and we say that everything is amazing for the steering wheel. I think we have to be honest, and these shortcomings do exist, and we should acknowledge that they're there. So first, let's talk about the magnetic shifters. Yes, the McLaren GT3 now has magnetic shifters, but I think that is a little bit of a loaded statement, and it doesn't mean exactly what you might think it means. It's true that the steering wheel does have magnets installed into the shifting mechanism, but the steering wheel still has a metal rocker arm style shifter that allows you to up and down shift with one hand. And they did update the design to use better push button momentary switches to replace the previous model switches that were more prone to failure. However, while they do have magnetic shifters, you can't simply say that this existence of magnetic shifters means that they're on par with other wheels that have magnetic shifters. So for example, if you were to do like a pros and cons list and you were comparing this steering wheel to a Formula V2 with advanced paddle module or one of the special edition Formula wheels that had the ClubSport magnetic shifters, you can't just have a line that says, do they have magnetic shifters, and then say yes, yes, and then treat it like they're both equal. The truth of the matter is, if we were to compare these wheels side by side, there's a very wide difference in feel and the sort of tactility and sound and how much time it takes to shift. Like if you actually use both wheels one after the other, you're going to feel a vast difference in how the shifting feels and sounds. And I think that the only way to demonstrate that to you is to show you this audio clip. So I'm going to show you a clip, and I'm going to show you each of the different shifting magnetic shifters for a few different steering wheels. So. Now, that BB Ultra button plate that I showed at the end is a relic from my SimiCube 2 wheelbase, but as you can see, all three of those wheels have magnetic shifters, but their sound, their feel, their lever action are all completely different. The BB Ultra has a very strong tactile and, to be honest, a little too loud, snapping shifting mechanism. The Formula V2 with advanced paddle module has a subtle but very tactile clacking sound. The McLaren GT3 wheel, on the other hand, it sounds a little bit clunky. And it's tactile, but it's slightly heavy compared to the other two shifters. Now, of course, as I said, for the price the GT3 wheel costs, it's a very small issue. It's something that you could easily overlook, but it's not something that we could pretend doesn't exist. A lot of people have said that the shifting on the McLaren GT3 feels a little bit clunky and heavy, and they wonder if there's ways to improve it. Now, there are third-party solutions available, like the Sim Racing Machines replacement shifters, and I have to say that I can personally vouch that Simon at Sim Racing Machines is a very amazing product developer, and the stuff that he sells is really high quality, and it's really great to order stuff from him. So if you order those shifters, I want to say that they're going to be shipped to you very fast. He's very fast at communicating, and I've personally seen the products that he's sold, and I've held them in my hand, and they're very high quality. But in my opinion, these third-party solutions require you to actually physically alter your GT3 steering wheel. So you can kiss your warranty goodbye if you do it. And to be honest, if you add these shifters and you add up the price and the ClubSport quick release adapter, this wheel becomes around $420 to $450 with a permanent modification that renders the warranty voided. So if you really don't mind spending that amount of money, I think you'd be far better served just buying the V2 Formula wheel and the paddle module for only about $130 more. So in my opinion, if you don't mind the way the shifters feel, just use it that way. Don't modify them to any significant degree, and just use that wheel for a year or two until you don't mind spending the extra money to buy the Formula V2 with the paddle module later on. But the McLaren GT3 wheel, you either like the shifters or you don't, and that's just something that's going to be different depending on personal experience. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of the shifters. They feel a little too clunky and heavy for me, but I could definitely see that they are better than the stock shifters on the Formula V2. So if you have to choose between the stock Formula V2 without the paddle module and the McLaren GT3 wheel, I definitely feel that the McLaren GT3 wheel is a better choice in that situation. But if you could afford the V2 with the paddle module, then I think that that's a better choice. The second possible advantage that you might be considering is that due to the rubber grips that are on the GT3 wheel, you might be wondering, okay, it has rubber grips, so does that mean that I could drive with this wheel without using gloves? Now, one of the things about Fanatec's Formula wheels is that they're very beautiful. I love the way that they look aesthetically, but they use this Alcantara material, which if you've ever driven a Subaru WRX, like the STI, they also have Alcantara seats and Alcantara steering wheels. Subaru owners are not big fans of Alcantara because it rubs off on your hands and it makes kind of like a gunky feel. So like a lot of people don't like that because you have to use gloves while you're driving with the steering wheel. And what's the point of having this amazing grip if you're not able to enjoy it because of this like Alcantara grip? It's gotten to a point where people who buy the Formula V2 wheels and they see the special edition, like the F1 2020 wheel that Fanatec released last year, and I'm looking forward to one coming out this year because I'm totally going to buy it. It had leather grips, and a lot of people sent emails to Fanatec asking them, hey, could you sell me the leather grips for the special edition Formula One wheel so that I can install them on my standard Formula V2? And Fanatec, of course, told them, no, you can't do that. So people are actually offering money to people to buy the leather grips because they want to use the leather grips since they could drive without gloves. Now, can you use the McLaren GT3 wheel without gloves? Now, I did do this. I drove with the McLaren GT3 wheel with no gloves. I set up a 1 hour long race against the AI in iRacing with the GT3 class. And I want to say that, yes, you can drive without gloves, sort of. I want to say that at about 20 to 25 minutes, my hands started to get really sweaty and the wheel started to feel a little bit warm and moist, if that's the right word. It feels kind of like, I don't know, like it's rubbing your hands. And I want to feel like you feel like your hands are going to start to get calloused. And personally, if I were going to buy one of these secondhand, I wouldn't want to buy one that somebody was using without gloves for any extended duration of time because I feel like the rubber is going to start rubbing off and it's going to have like permanent handprints on it or something. So the polyurethane based rubber grip that it uses, I think it's called like Shapes 50 or something. The material is definitely nice. It feels good in your hands without gloves, but it's not as breathable as leather or even synthetic leather. So I think that the soft limit, in my opinion, is about 30 minutes. So if you're doing sprint races or short drives, or if you're just doing a couple of quick races against the AI before you go and watch Netflix or something, then definitely you could use this steering wheel without gloves. But I don't think that for endurance races or for 1 hour long GT sprint races on iRacing, I don't think that you're going to want to use this without gloves, in my opinion. So I think that it's sort of a wash. With both wheels, you're going to want to use gloves, but with this one, you at least have that 20 to 30 minute amount of time that you could use it without gloves. So yeah, the conclusion. The McLaren GT3 wheel presents such a strong value that it doesn't make sense for anybody to choose the ClubSport Esports wheel or the ClubSport Carbon wheel unless you really value the ClubSport vibration motors or the LED lights or the joystick function on the steering wheel. If you think that those functions are worth choosing an inferior wheel in almost every way, then yeah, you could use the ClubSport F1 Esports wheel or the Formula Carbon wheel. But if you want something that has a good amount of functions, a decent shifting mechanism, analog clutches, like 4 different like incremental and decremental switches that you can use, along with having a significant amount of push buttons on the wheel itself, along with being a significantly good size that you can use for both open cars and GT3 and Formula cars, then yeah, the GT3 wheel is the absolute best wheel that you can get under $400 by Fanatec. I think that the only wheel that is better is not just the Formula V2, but it has to be the Formula V2 with the advanced paddle module. So like something similar to this one comes with the Podium Racing Wheel F1. But if you don't have the advanced paddle module, the stock Formula V2 with the metal mushy spring-based shifters on the back is also an inferior wheel to the McLaren GT3. It's that good of a value. The other advantage that I didn't talk about earlier is that the McLaren GT3 wheel is licensed for use with Xbox. Neither the Esports or the Carbon wheel can be used with Xbox. So that means not only is this wheel a better value, and it's actually a really cheap price, but it's also compatible with both consoles. That's something that you don't get with the Formula Esports or the Formula Carbon wheel. So yeah, if you want to do things like changing your ABS settings, your brake bias, your traction control, any of those engine map settings, for example, you have the ability to do that here without eating up too many of your functions. You have 2 multi-position rotary encoders and 2 toggle switches that can both be used for incrementing and decrementing, and you do that without sacrificing any of your buttons. You have a full funky switch, and you have all of those functions. Now versus the Formula V2, the comparison starts to get a little bit complicated because while the McLaren GT3 does have magnetic shifters, as I showed you in the videos earlier, the video clips earlier in this video, the magnetic shifting mechanism is completely different between the GT3 and the advanced paddle module and other magnetic shifters. So it does feel more tactile than the stock ClubSport shifters or the spring-loaded metal shifters that the ClubSport wheels and the P1 wheels use, but it doesn't feel as crisp or as tactile as the advanced paddle module. So if you can afford the advanced paddle module and the Formula V2, it is a better solution. Of course, it is more expensive, but my personal opinion is that you should at least try out the McLaren GT3 wheel and see if you like the shifting mechanism or not. I think that it's a highly subjective feeling, and if you actually enjoy it, then this wheel is a very good value because you'll get a shifting feel that you like, along with getting a much better value than the Formula V2. There are third-party solutions to solve the McLaren GT3 shifting problem, but I don't feel that they're worth it because you're going to lose your warranty and you do have to permanently modify the McLaren GT3 in order to install them, and so I feel like it will affect resale value, and to be honest, it kind of makes it a bad value. When you add those magnetic shifters, you end up driving the cost of this steering wheel up to above $400, which means that it gets too close to what the Formula V2 with advanced paddle module costs. So yeah, and the last thing is the size. In conclusion, I think that one thing you might be concerned about is this size too big for Formula wheels, or is the Formula wheel too small for GT3? I think that they can both be interchanged pretty reasonably. I think that there's an adjustment time with the Formula V2 wheel, but I think that the McLaren GT3 wheel, there's not really an adjustment time. You could use this with Formula cars or with GT3 cars and you're not going to have any issues at all. Realistically, they can both be alternated as much as you like. Now, I do feel like if you're buying a DD1 or a DD2, perhaps for you, cost isn't an issue, and I think that buying the ClubSport metallic adapter is a better solution than modifying this plastic new style QR with the lever that pushes the button inside of the steering wheel to unlock full torque. I don't think that you should modify this. I think that you should just buy the ClubSport quick release, and it's also going to make it easier to install. You just pull the quick release, the metal slide back, and then drop it in. Especially if you have a Z-ring, it's going to be really quick to install. But yeah, this wheel is a very great value. I'm going to sell it just because I bought a Podium Racing Wheel F1, and to my surprise, the Formula wheel wasn't too small for GT3. But if I didn't have that wheel, or if I can sell it for a really great price, since I think that you can't buy that wheel by itself, and maybe some people like the blue, yeah, then maybe I'll keep this. But personally, I don't really like the shifters, but I think that you might. So yeah, it's a great value. It's compatible with both consoles. So yeah, it's a good wheel. And if you're worried about whether or not you can use it with open wheel or how it compares with the V2, I hope that this video was useful for you. But yeah, have fun, guys. And if you have any questions about the McLaren GT3 wheel, how it feels while it's driving, and you'd like to ask me any questions, feel free to drop me a comment below. Thanks for watching. My next video is going to be a review of the Podium Racing Wheel F1, so I hope you guys will look forward to that.